Hey there, welcome everyone. Welcome to Dom Sub Devotion Live. It has been too long since we got to do one of these. For those of you who might be new here, we are full-time RVers. We live in this camper that you see us sitting in if you're catching us on the live recording right now. And the last time we did one of these was back before we left home this fall. But these are always one of our favorite things, to be able to be here with our listeners and viewers and to interact with you. So we're going to share some stuff at the beginning here. Please feel free to interact with us in the chat. And if you are catching this on the recording, we will try to read the questions people have for us out loud so that you can hear what the questions were if you're listening back to this later. But this is a live podcast, so it's unedited and unscripted, and we are just here to chat with you. And before we get started tonight, I just wanted to take a moment to let everyone know that we have just opened up the enrollments for our course Rapture. Rapture is a course that we put on once a year, and it starts in January. This year it starts on the 16th. And Rapture is the one time a year where Dawn and I sit down and we teach everything we've learned about how to make these relationships work well in a way that is loving, a way that's healthy, and also that supports all of the passion and intensity and all the fun. That's the reason that we all want these Dom sub dynamics in the first place, right? So this starts in January. The enrollments are open now. We keep this to a small group, and it's limited to a small group. So you can visit infinitedevotion.com/rapture. Or if you are catching this later, look in the show notes. We will keep the enrollments open until it's full or until we start on January 16th. And the thing that I love the most about Rapture is it really does let us teach like the full A to Z. There are very few times, even when we're coaching people one-on-one, because we're working with them kind of in their specific areas of growth, the things they're working on, the places they want to grow, and the things that are important to them. But we don't always get to teach all of the nuts and bolts, everything that we've had to go through and learn and become individually to make this dynamic work. So for me, it's just really fun to put it all out on the table. What have you really enjoyed about it?
Just meeting everybody and connecting with other people who just want something more for themselves and their relationships. And so it's really fun meeting those people and getting to know them, because this will be 4 or 5 months long.
5 months long this year.
Okay. So a little bit longer. And I'm looking forward to that part.
Yeah, we've expanded this from what it's been the last 2 years. This is our third time. The thing that people told us the last couple of years is that Rapture was like drinking from a fire hose.
Oh, we knew that.
Yeah. Well, it felt like I was also teaching from a fire hose, because we would do all of the teaching live. And we would do 8 calls that were all 2 to 3 hours long, that were mostly filled with us talking. And you can't learn everything that quickly. You certainly can't integrate everything that quickly, but it was kind of a download of information. And so what we're doing this year is we're pre-recording all of the teaching parts of Rapture, so you can watch through it. Anybody who joins can watch through. For example, the first module of Rapture is called Beyond Kink. And it talks about taking these relationships outside of the realm of kink and into the realm of how we relate to each other. And so we get to break that up into a little bit shorter video segments that you can watch on your own, absorb the content, discuss it if you're doing this with a partner. And then rather than doing 8 calls that are mostly us talking at the camera, we're doing 12 of them that are mostly going to be you talking to us and bringing us your questions, help sharing with us what you need help integrating and learning and bringing into your life.
And that's my favorite part.
Yeah.
It's
And
always the Q&As.
yeah. So again, we'll end the commercial for Rapture here, but this is really a deeply transformational program. We've designed it to be the best it's ever been. And we're excited to see who joins and who's a part of it this year. We already have some spots filling up. We have some left available. So again, you can click the link in the show notes here or visit infinitedevotion.com/rapture. So tonight's podcast and this episode, tomorrow is New Year's Eve. It's the end of 2024, and we've been through a hell of a year together.
Mm-hmm.
So I wanted to take a little bit of time to just recap our year and some of the highlights of both our lives and our relationship. And then a little bit later on, we have a couple of nuggets about what's going to be coming for us in 2025. But I don't think we can start anywhere else talking about 2024 than to talk about the impact that leaving home and becoming full-time nomads, living on the road, living in this camper, traveling. Just since we left home 2.5 months ago, we've been in Nashville, we've been in Gulf Shores, Alabama, we've been in the New Orleans area where we are now, and then we go to Austin, Texas in a couple days. So I know, very long story with everything that you've been through, but what has this been like for you, going through leaving home and being on the road now?
Well, I think I've shared a little bit about this, but it really forced me to see some things about myself that were ready to be seen.
Mm.
And like the disconnecting from the roots of home, like that is something that you can't completely prepare for. You can't know exactly what that's going to feel like. And I remember one time when we were going out on a date night or somewhere, or I think we were driving to storage one day when we were preparing. I'm like, I'm going to cry. And you're like, are you? I'm like, well, yeah. And I was like, I'm pretty sure, like, because it's just emotion and I let it flow freely. And so on the other side of, working through a lot of that, it is a freedom and a way of living that just wasn't possible being in one area my whole life. For me, like, I'm not saying you can't do that, but for me, I really saw the necessity of breaking the physical ties, the location. And so it's been great
Yeah.
now.
The roots thing was real for you.
Mhm.
Your family goes back generations in the same general vicinity where you've lived your whole life, and you never left. Well, you left for a month and then came back when you went to Chicago temporarily.
Yes.
Um,
We don't need to talk about that.
when I asked you, like, are you sure you're going to cry? I've gotten to know you well enough to know that your emotions are not always what you predict them to be. So what I was getting at in that was, let's not make stories or assumptions about what you're going to feel and just see what happens. Because what really ended up happening was more than tears. It was, like, in some ways, I won't say a full-on breakdown, but it was a pretty big, it hit you pretty deeply.
Yeah, and I knew that. Like, intuitively, I knew that. I knew something was coming. I was really excited, but I also knew that it was gonna be hard to say the goodbyes, the see you laters. And it's much different leaving it was much different leaving this time than any other time when it's like, "Okay, we're going for 3 months." Even
Mhm.
that's a long time. It was the longest I'd ever been away, but
If we hadn't done that, I think this would have been even harder on you.
maybe.
For me, it was very different. This was a dream of mine that was hatched 10 years ago or close to it. It's something I've been dreaming about for a long time, to be able to travel and live on the road and be free. So for me, leaving home, driving away was just like this sense of accomplishment. It was this sense of fulfillment, like the payoff of wanting something, having to shift and change your whole life, including career, including our living situation, completely changing our financial situation, getting out of debt, like all of the stuff that went into being able to roll down that road. It was this massive feeling of accomplishment, fulfillment, just being really proud of myself. And, the reality of it was I had to kind of enjoy that by myself. And that's okay.
Yeah, that was a really, I don't even know what to call it, but good example of me really learning to let myself feel it all, because I could look at you and I could feel your excitement, but I didn't have excitement right now, right
Mhm.
in those moments. And for me to truly honor all of it and keep expressing it to you, and I did that in moments when I could tell, like, you could receive me if we were driving and you didn't need to over focus. Um, but I just let myself be in it,
Mhm.
and it fucking hurt. But I also could hold the knowing and the belief that going through this experience was gonna open me in a way that nothing else had. And so I could hold all of that. Like, my capacity to feel so much at one time is I'm really proud of myself for that, and not collapse in them, but just literally let myself feel whatever.
And this, if you wanna know what the heck this has to do with dom sub dynamics, here it is. Because number 1, if I'm really excited about something and she's sad at the same time about the same thing, even though she's excited and sad, if I hadn't built the inner strength in myself and the trust in myself and the trust in her and everything else, like, this is why I say dominance starts inside. It's inner dominance first. It's not about, like, doming you. If I didn't have that strength in me, it would have been really easy for me to get reactive with you and maybe get upset with you because we've been looking forward to this for 10 years and now you're just crying,
What's wrong with you?
or or like crapping on you for raining on my parade.
Yeah.
But also, this is where I think dom sub dynamics go sideways sometimes, because if I'm not able to be comfortable with you having your emotional experience, and then I use the dominance that you've given me, the place of leadership in your life that you've opened yourself to and given to me, and if I were to use that and tell you, like, command you to stop crying, okay, I'm not doing anything in a loving, healthy way there. What I'm doing is using what you've given me to hurt you. So this is why all dominance has to start inside first. And then, this emotional experience that you're having, your ability to trust your own emotions and feel your own feelings is something you had to build enough trust in yourself and safety in yourself. Even if I'm over here telling you, like, giving you big gigantic permission slip and a big open runway to be all of yourself, the fear of it, of, like, what might happen if you actually do. is something that has to dissolve in your system. And so that's a part of what submission really is. Because to be able to feel all of your feelings also means that you have the capacity to feel all of the other feelings, the really fun ones that don't get bottled up either.
Yeah, and I was just kinda thinking back to that first day, and since you were driving, could just be in my experience by myself, I really got to face some deep things. Really just let myself be in it because I couldn't go anywhere. I was in a truck, and you were busy driving, and, like, I could share it with you, but wow, I had to see some deep, deep patterns in my own wounding, and yeah.
So to wind the travel part of this conversation up, what has it been like for you recently now that it's been 2.5 months? What are you feeling about this whole travel situation?
Well, I do wanna share this, that, we went to Nashville for a week, and wow, we did not party on Broadway every night.
We did
But
3 nights though.
yeah, we did 3, and, our style, though, I think we left, like, by 10:30 or before every night.
Yeah. Yeah, it's pretty
But
tough to keep us up past 11 no matter what we're doing.
yeah, but what I wanna share there is, going through some of these painful things, I wasn't always feeling sad and grief and all of that. Like, we still went out, and so it's a flow, and it really is not attaching to anything and gripping onto it when you feel it. It's literally letting it be there, and then the next moment I might be laughing. So, we had a lot of fun, and it felt like the grief moments, like, kept getting less frequent until all of a sudden it was a ways into our first month stay in Gulf Shores when I was just like, "Oh, wow, okay, I think I'm actually coming out of this."
Yeah.
And then by the time we were driving over here, I got hit more.
Well,
So, it's been fun, honestly, watching the grief lessen and start to feel more like myself again, because there were some things that opened up inside of me back in Minnesota over summertime, and so I felt like I was in the muck since, like, June.
yeah.
So, being able to, like, feel like I was standing up again has just felt really, really good, and the excitement has only gotten bigger, and, now I don't cry about those things anymore. So, I feel like those things closed, and yeah, New Orleans was fun.
Do you have any other highlights from this past year that you wanna share?
The whole past year. Oh, man. Well, I remember sitting down on New Year's Eve last year, and I wanted to, like, listen to that, so I wanna do that tomorrow, but, we did a voice recording of just some statements on what we wanted in 2005 20
What did we want in two
2024.
What did we want in 2005?
I was starting to say 25, I'm like, "No, that's next year." Whatever year it is, time is an illusion, right? Um And I remember just this energy of, I'm claiming this year for me. Like, this is gonna be big and I just know it. Did not know that my heart was gonna get fucking ripped open, but all for my own evolution. And so the thing that I'm just the most proud of is just my commitment to becoming more of me and not giving up. Because I remember there's been plenty of moments where I'm like, I don't feel like I'm getting a break. I feel like life is just coming at me. I'm drinking from the fire hose. And when is it going to stop? Like, when am I going to feel like I just have a breath?
Mhm.
And so that's where I feel like I'm at now, is just feeling like I can just breathe and live and enjoy every day. I say this to you most days. Like, I just love our life, and you created it.
On a little different note, one of my highlights from this last year was a part of the lead up to moving, and that was the surprise, surprise. If you're living in a trailer, you don't have a lot of room for a lot of stuff,
No.
and we had to get rid of so much stuff, and that felt so good to do the to really become minimalists in a new way. Now we do still have a storage unit full of stuff that I'm already wishing I didn't even have, but
Yeah, kind of.
um, being being able to get rid of all of the responsibilities that go with the maintenance and caretaking and looking after so many things. I have so few things now, and to want even less things,
Yeah.
it's like that is a sense of freedom for me that 2024, sorry, has really really felt like a big gift this year. I remember, for example, we had a boat, and it was a pretty large thing, and after we sold it, I remember every time I would see a boat driving down the road, I would get goosebumps because of the feeling of freedom of not having to go through the maintenance and caretaking of that thing. As much as I loved that boat, like,
Yeah, we had so much fun on there.
so getting rid of lots of stuff, vehicles, boats, belongings.
Well, the old cliche, when one door closes, another one opens. There's that energy of like not being attached to your material possessions is such a freeing thing.
Mhm.
To know that if this goes away, something of the same or even better can come desired again. And so for me, like getting rid of the boat, that was, oh my gosh, I'm going to be so sad. And it actually was like, oh no, like the summer back in Minnesota was not all that great for boating, which
Yeah.
was very supportive of getting rid of it. So,
It was pretty funny watching it drive away, though. The people who picked it up and were taking it home with them pulled away from our house and drove up over a curb and
not ours anymore.
yep. Good luck with that. So one of the things that I've really loved also about this year in relation to infinite devotion, this business that we've built, this is going on, well, really 4 years of running this business now. And wow, has it taken off this year? Like, to all of you listening, watching, thank you. Holy cow. When we started doing this and we had 200 followers on Instagram and we were essentially shouting into the void, talking about things, and a couple people were to a point now where we're consistently reaching over 1 million people a month just on our Instagram content. It's unbelievable. So grateful that many people have found what we share to be helpful and valuable, and in whatever ways that we're able to touch people's lives and make a difference feels so special. It really does. It's humbling. Really deeply humbling. All of you, thank you. So seeing that grow this year and how much we've put out between this podcast and my other one, close to 100 podcast episodes published this year, 3 new pre-recorded courses we recorded, built, published, marketed. We did our 2 group coaching things, Rapture, which, again, commercial. The enrollments for Rapture are open now. You can visit infinitedevotion.com/rapture. Uh, and Communion were both such amazing programs this year and amazing people that we got to meet through them. It's just been a really, really special year. And watching just the numbers of everything grow it's so cool.
One of the coolest things that I've found from communion and rapture is the people getting to know each other. And they're like, I want to meet you in person. And like, some of them making those kind of things happen. And so it's just, I don't know, it's just really cool to be able to have this as a place for people to connect to.
Stay tuned. We'll come back to community and what we're going to be doing to help build community in a little bit. In the chat, someone asked, describe what you're living in now. We are in a 35-foot fifth wheel camper. Brad, I know you are in Canada, so that is about 11 meters. And so it's a Grand Design Solitude. It's got pretty tall ceilings. I mean, it is a little house on wheels. I'm looking around because basically we're in the one room. There's two rooms. There's a bedroom and then there's everything else. So
And a bathroom.
we have a kitchen with an island right here that you can't see. We have a stove with a oven where I bake sourdough bread, full-size refrigerator that's bigger than the one we had at home. We have a king-size bed. So we're not cramped into van life by any stretch of the imagination, but it is a small home.
It is, but there's a love seat and a couch and a fireplace and TV, like,
And a podcasting studio that we have to set up and tear down.
I know. I've thought about, like, how can we have a space where we can just, like, leave some of this stuff up? But I don't know. I keep putting this out there to the universe. I want to design our fifth wheel. I want to completely design it kind of based upon someone's model. And I don't know if anyone would do that for me, but if any of one of you know anyone, I want to do that.
So the next thing that I wanted to kind of bounce back and forth between us is I wanted to share something about you that I have noticed and really appreciated in you and your growth, both as a woman, as a wife, as my submissive this year, is I have watched you shift completely out of a victim state in your life and completely into a state of responsibility and self-ownership. And it's been a process for you to be able to have the awareness that you needed to have to really take full ownership of your submission, of your individuality, of your own life and who you are. And it felt at times in the past like I was trying to drag you to heaven and you were kicking and screaming, trying to fight your way back. And
Ego is pretty powerful.
And I really have built such a deep sense of trust in you this year as I've watched you really own yourself. And if anyone listening wants to know how really owning yourself and coming fully into your individuality is extremely congruent with submission. Those are not things that don't work together. They're things that work perfectly together. That is a part of what we talk about in Rapture too. But the amount of ownership you have of yourself is admirable. It's special. It's something that I think is so rare in the world to see a truly embodied woman who has the self-ownership to be able to decide what to do with her life. And then the amount of humility that I have in your willingness to take all that self-ownership and put it in my hands to lead you feels extraordinarily special, and I'm grateful for you.
Thank you for that. I wouldn't be here without you. I actually know who I am and love who I am because of this. So thank you.
So being a submissive isn't the same as being a doormat?
No, we don't need to talk about that today.
And then when it comes to us as a couple and our dynamic, I just look at at like where we are together as being like we're standing in a doorway with the whole world in front of us and every single opportunity. And to know that I can take you anywhere and that you will trust me enough to go with me. I guess maybe a different way of saying this. I've talked before quite a bit about this idea of approaching life from the same side of the table. And it really, really feels like we live there now. And when I say that, it's never me against you, me trying to get something from you and you trying to get something from me. It is, we are side by side going in the same direction towards a life that we want to live together. And I'm really proud of the way that we approach problems and challenges and things that don't go the way that we might want them to go with a joint effort. There's never blame. There's never finger pointing at all. There's no resentment present in this relationship. And holy shit, you want to talk about freedom. Be in a relationship where there's absolutely no resentment and complete honesty and transparency. That alone, that is freedom for me like nothing else. And that's as a couple and in our dynamic, that's what I'm really proud of us for.
Me too. And I'm also really proud of you and thankful. I know I've said this before, but I'm going to say it again. Like, you never have given up on me. Even in the moments where you were earlier on, you were like, uh, does she even want to be a submissive? And you and I both didn't know what was all covering up me, but I never gave up and you never gave up on me. And I don't know where life is taking us, but I know it's somewhere great. And the reason I can say that is because of you and my whole experience of life and just trusting the universe to give, to provide, to just show up for us. Like, there's no doubt. And I've connected with that because of you. And also how you've changed as a man in our relationship. Like, you set a high standard. And I love that.
Thank you. I do set a high standard, and I set a high standard for myself because one of those mantras or mottos of our relationship is, how good can this get?
Mhm.
And being able to approach our life in that way, being able to approach my life in that way is a complete 180 from the old way that I used to do everything, which is to put pressure on myself, like turn the level of pressure up to 10 and then just beat the shit out of myself to try to make myself better. Like somehow by destroying myself, I was going to improve myself. And how good can this get approach to life is really like, it doesn't matter if things don't go well or go according to plan. It's, let's see how good we can make it. And I want to see how good I can be. I want to see how solid I can be. I want to see how in control of myself I can be. And sometimes that's a slow, grueling process. And sometimes it just takes seeing something and making a different decision. But when all the pressure's off, it's so much easier.
One of my favorite things to experience, this might surprise you, is you have told me so many things over the course of our time together, even before Dumb Sub. Like, the man you are today was inside of you then. And I love arriving at a moment where I'm like, huh, that just hit me differently. And I'm like, I will bring it to you. And I'm like, I know you. told me this. And I love being able to give you that pat on the back and be like, "Yes, I finally get it now." Like, I
And
got it before in my head, but now I feel it, and I love those moments because, like, every one of them has probably come out of your mouth in your leadership for me in some fashion. So, I love that.
we just recorded an episode that'll come out in a few weeks for those of you who are listeners that is about this topic of persistence and really
Mhm,
having your dominance and your dynamic based on something so you can be consistent over time. And that's, one of the things that this has really become for us is it's not about how I dumb you and the things. Well, sometimes it is, but that's not the main point and purpose of this. That's the fun part that we do sometimes. But the leadership part, the 24/7 part of this is really me guiding us together through a journey of life to see how authentic we can be, to see how free we can be, to see how much fun we can have, to see how alive we can be. And yeah, sometimes that means we're doing really deep emotional work and I'm
mhm,
holding you through all kinds of grief. And that is as much a part of our Dom sub dynamic, like me holding you while you let go of pain from your childhood, as any scene that we might ever do.
mhm. Yeah, and I love that our relationship has really become something so intertwined in all of our interactions and everything that we do that sometimes it's like, how do you even describe this anymore? And it really is just, yeah, intertwined in everything we do and everything we are together. And I just love that.
So if you are here with us live tonight, you can use the chat. We are going to take some time at the end of this to answer your questions. I see a couple of them coming in here. We will come back to all of them. Thank you. Please feel free to share them. We'll try to get through as many of them as we can at the end of our call here. And one of the other really fun things, if you have anything else to share about our year in review, I'll give you a chance here in just a second.
Okay.
One of the other fun pieces of this past year for me has been all of the novelty. It's something that even before we were a Dom sub couple, the first 10 years of our relationship, we never stopped dating each other.
Mm-mm.
And for those of you listening, like if you're married, if you're in a Dom sub dynamic, you can still date, right? Date your wife, guys. Take her out, tell her to put on a fancy dress and sexy high heels, send her to get her nails done. Like, we're still the same people that we were when we met and fell in love with each other, and that intensity of that new relationship energy. Um, that requires novelty. But the reason, in part, that new relationship energy is so hot is because it's new.
Yeah.
Like, you're a new person, and I want to figure you out. When I have you figured out, we need novelty in our relationship to continue to keep it exciting. And that's something that I think we've always done, but we've really taken that to a new level this year with going to see lots of live music, street dances. We've had some new experiences, some crazy travel experiences. We've had some experiences we won't talk about in this podcast. Like, we've had a lot of fun this year. We've had a ton of fun and like doing new things. One of my favorite things that happens to us, and it happens so consistently now, it's almost a running joke now. We're waiting for when we go out for this to happen, but people come up to us and ask us like if we're newlyweds or like they're kind of taken aback at how into each other we are, especially when they hear we've been together now for almost 16 years. It blows people's minds when they realize we're not like newly dating. And that's intentional. That takes intentionality, and it takes intentionality on my part as the leader of this relationship to create it, to create the time for it, to prioritize it, to keep us to keep things exciting and fun and new. If you want to do these dynamics in a 24/7 way, the dominant has to lead. Now, it doesn't mean I have to do everything, right?
Right.
If I needed to or wanted to, I might delegate some of the planning to you, or I might delegate parts of things to divide labor if that was the way our life works out. The way our life works out, since our relationship is our job,
That sounds kind of funny.
it does sound funny, but it is also kind of true. Taking you out on dates is a part of it's an important part of my life, and it's a lot of fun because damn, you're a good time.
Thank you. I've become a way better time.
You, 2024 Dawn, that all of you have gotten to know, especially how many of you are newer. I know there's a lot of newer people here to us. I see some old timer names that have been the OGs that have been around for a long time, but yeah, 2024 Dawn is a completely different animal. She's a lot more like 2009 Dawn.
Well, that's funny that you say that, because I was just, when you were talking about that new relationship energy and the infatuation stage, I never really understood it, but like I just accepted that some of that faded in our relationship. And I remember you saying like, I don't think it has to fade. And I'm like, how does it not? So going through all of the work that we have together, I would say that like that infatuation energy is such a small glimmer of what we get to experience now for real, with full presence with each other and so much more pleasure and like an experience of life that I didn't know was possible.
Yeah, that's something I want to talk more about in probably a future podcast, but that is that was really one of the driving questions that drove me to ask you to be my submissive, to start this business, to do everything that we do with this podcast, with our courses, with our coaching and our courses and everything else. I had this drive to prove to myself that you could have the hottest, most intense passion with the person you loved the most, like that infatuation didn't have to end, that it didn't have to be this downhill slope of excitement just because you're in a long-term relationship. I never accepted that you couldn't have both of those things. No, the reality is you absolutely can, and I feel like we've cracked the code.
Hmm.
And I'll throw another plug for our course Rapture that is open now into this. This is what we teach in there, is what it takes to build what we've built, which is we're on an upward track that is getting better at a faster rate. This is everything about our lives, individually and as a couple, continues to get better, including the sex, including the passion, including the intensity, including the kink, including everything,
Communication.
like communication and closeness and intimacy and depth. All of these things go hand in hand, and really just a little flash of what comes in Rapture is how much understanding the way that we relate emotionally is so fucked up in the world. And that's the thing that I think we've cracked, both from the female and the male perspective, and how to make this work so that it feeds the sexual intensity and the passion so that you don't have to sacrifice one for the other.
Right.
That's all of module 2 of Rapture.
So back to, I was going to say about this last year
Yeah.
was basically, for one, last year at this time, we did not know we were going to be doing this year, because we didn't decide to,
Traveling, you mean?
yeah, to give up the house in Minnesota until spring. And so that's been a big shift this year, and that's been fun. But I also was going to say all of the novelty and all of the fun, like so much from being down in Houston and
What?
what?
What are you giggling about?
Marvelous.
Oh. All right. Anybody who's never been to Houston, we'll give you a little tip here. If you've never been to Houston, or if you do go to Houston, there is a speakeasy called Marfreless. Marfreless. And Marfreless is a speakeasy, no sign on the door. There's just a blue door in the side of a brick building. And it is a makeout bar. And it is dark, and it is like the menus are backlit because you can't even like you can't even, there's not enough light to even see a menu. And upstairs are just couches and places you can go. You can only go upstairs if you're a couple, and you can go sit up on a couch and have your drink and make out.
Yeah, that was a fun place.
That was a fun place. Check it out sometime. It's pretty cool.
That came to my mind, and then all of the dancing and the live music we saw, amongst all of, the goings on back in Minnesota over summer. So it's been probably our best year yet.
Yeah, it's been a lot of fun. So I want to flash forward to 2025 just a little bit here.
And then I'm excited to answer some questions.
Yes, and then we'll get to your questions. So please keep those coming too. Someone asked in the chat some of the other destinations we've planned for 2025. Well, when we leave here, we are in the New Orleans area right now. When we leave here on Thursday, we go to Austin, Texas, and we'll be in the Austin and Houston area for probably close to 4 months total.
Got to stay somewhere warmer for winter.
Yep. And eventually down there, we're going to get some Texas license plates for our vehicle and stop paying Minnesota sales taxes. See you later, Minnesota. Income taxes up there.
Yeah.
You know, what they say about Minnesota is that the taxes are high, but at least the weather's bad. It's also called the California of the North. So yeah, we'll spend the first probably 3 or 4 months in Texas, and then we're going to go west. Your daughter graduates from college out in Arizona,
Mm-hmm.
so we'll go to Arizona from Texas, and then from there, who knows?
Yeah, we're looking right now.
Yeah, we're exploring options.
Whether that's way far west or a little north too. So
a couple things we have planned for Infinite Devotion in the next year is that the community you mentioned earlier, right? The people getting to know each other in some of these courses has been so cool to see people kind of having the, oh, I'm not alone experience.
exactly.
There's other people like me. And we want to make more of that possible, but we want to do it inside of a safe kind of structured container. So it's not, so all the fake doms basically can't come in and try to pick up all the women. Be like, hey baby, you sub, I'm dom. Put this collar on now. We keep those people out by charging a little bit of money for it. It's going to be really inexpensive, whatever it is. And inside of this community that we're going to build, we're going to have several different things. And these are all kind of ideas right now. If you have other ideas for us in this, we'd love to hear them. But one of them is we're going to make a place for people who like to listen to the podcast to go and talk to each other about it and discuss what they've learned, what they like, questions they have about it.
Mhm.
We are going to also have a spot for the graduates of some of our courses like Rapture and Communion to stay in touch with each other, and also some discussion groups, hopefully like a way for people to find friends, maybe by different regions of the country and parts of the world, for people who join and are a part of this, to connect with other people, just to make some friends, because we hear so consistently from people that like they can't talk to their friends about this, but they also don't have anyone else to talk to about it. And it really is helpful to have community. So the combination of some online community with the ability to make some real life in-person community if you want to. And then one of the last pieces of that is that we're going to do some ongoing live Q&As just for the members of that community, so that we can have those probably monthly or so, where you'll get a little bit more attention from us and a little bit more time where we can just kind of pop in and sit with you and answer some questions, help a little bit how we can. You know, it won't be anywhere near like one-on-one coaching, but it will be an opportunity at least to pick our brains or ask for some of our advice.
Yeah. And how that all plays out is a little out of our hands.
Yeah.
So the
There's a piece
technology aspect.
There's a piece of software that I'm waiting to be updated before I can really get to the launching of this. So coming sometime next year.
We sure hope.
That is one of the plans that we have coming. And the others for Infinite Devotion have to stay kind of under wraps right now. But what I will say is that so much of what we've built in this business has come from ideas that I've had and things that I've seen and wanted to put out there and create as ways to connect and give back, and to try to share what it is that we're experiencing together. And the more that you have come into yourself and into your body and into your self-ownership, there's a whole new world available to us that lets your expression show up more. And I'm excited to see what that is.
This year will show us. That's for sure.
Whatever it is, I'm sure we'll have fun.
Without a doubt. We always do.
We sure do. So 2025 will be a ton of fun for us on a personal level and on a business level. And, you know, who knows? I hope we're doing another one of these. I hope we're still doing this in whatever fashion we are a year from now. The support means a lot to us. It really does, from all of you. So again, thank you. We're deeply humbled to be able to be doing this as a living, as a job, as a way to, for me to take care of her by sharing our love with you. That's really what Infinite Devotion is. And that's pretty damn special. So again,
Absolutely.
Thank you all. So we are going to pivot now for the rest of the time that we're here. We aren't on a real strict timeline tonight. But again, if you're listening to this afterwards, this is a live recording podcast, and the people who are here listening and watching live are giving us some questions in the chat. And we're going to pivot over and start asking ourselves some of those and answering some of them. I have to come back to the follow-up question on our what kind of camper we live in. What kind of truck do you have? Which is a guy question. I appreciate that. I have a Chevy Duramax 1-ton diesel, and it drags this beast beautifully. I love it.
And I will say that was my vehicle before.
Yeah. When we first bought the truck before the camper, a couple years before the camper, and
in
Dawn
19?
Dawn drove the diesel truck around for the first couple of years, and she looked so hot driving a big diesel around.
Yep. It
So
I have to say though, the 1 ton is not as quite as sexy as the half tons. They make them just a little bit better, or at least in our model year.
yeah, it is a good looking truck though,
It is.
and it does its job well. It's a tool for us at this point. It drags our house around.
Mhm.
All right, so we've got some questions here. I haven't read them, so I'm going to read them and then answer them on the fly. My question for Andrew: how did you come to discover who you are, accepting being dominant? As I've recently learned who I am at 53 years old, actually accepting who I am with your help, I must say. Well, first of all, any part that I played in that, I'm grateful to have been able to play it, because this is all about figuring out who you are. It is a journey of authenticity, first, foremost, and really only. And for me, I had a series of breaking points that I hit. I would say it was always through pain, through struggle, through suffering that I learned not who I am, but who I'm not. And when I realized, for example, sitting back in about 2014 was kind of the nexus of my shift in the way that I was living my life. So, side note there, that was over 10 years ago. So, when you come into this and you start doing this work, have some patience with yourself. You're not going to change everything about yourself in 6 months. And if you're with a partner and your partner's working on changing, they're not going to change and be completely different in 6 months, right? I've been trying to guide you along for years. And sometimes, like I said earlier, kicking and screaming as I try to drag you to heaven. But for me, it the best way to answer that question is that I've always been who I am. What I had to do is let go of everything that I'm not, that I had piled on top of who I am. All the resistance, all of the self-abandonment, the self-denial, the that I abandoned myself and didn't show up for myself and didn't honor who I really was, which is just me. It's just me. I am who I am. And then all the ways that I tried to be something else, when that goes away, all that's left is just what's there. And pain, suffering, struggle, those things will all show you a lot about who you're not. The next question: we're newer to the DS world. I've fallen in love with it, but we are also still in the space of kids at home, moving, all the things, and don't know how to live this out. So many questions. What would you say to that question?
Well, ask some questions if you're willing here. Um, but one thing that we always say is you got to start slow. If you like this dynamic, like we didn't jump into where we are at now. You can't even do that. So start with a few things that just work for you. And we've talked a lot about rituals and stuff on some of the other podcasts, but those are things that don't even have to be sexual in nature, that you can do in your normal life, that it doesn't matter who sees you doing them or if the kid sees them. And in my opinion, kids seeing love and devotion and respect between mom and dad, or like whoever the parental figures, even if it's boyfriend, girlfriend, whatever, having a healthy, loving dynamic model to them is a benefit. So, like, try to take a step back and look at maybe where am I bringing shame into how I'm seeing this in regards to my children. And that's a big one. I get it. Um, but it is an important aspect to really sit with because it doesn't have to be filled with shame.
Yeah, the what shame and fear will tell you is that if you let any part of this dynamic outside of the bedroom, that everybody's going to know what happens inside the bedroom, including your kids. And like we can't let them know that like dad's in charge.
Mhm.
We've had people say like, I don't want to program my kids with this belief that women are supposed to submit to men. And my answer to that is always, well, how about programming your kids with an example of a man exhibiting healthy leadership and a woman learning how to trust and let go and follow, but still speak up for herself? You know, we went through all of the moving. You mentioned moving in your question there.
Mhm.
We went through moving. Of moving was a part of we. It was within our sub dynamic. I made the plans, the structure. I planned when we were going to do the moving. I've lined up the storage facilities, the U-Haul trucks, or I told you what to do to help me. And then, you know, we executed it based on a plan that I had laid out for us. And in that, your submission to me is essentially following the lead that I set out, but then also being, you shared with me as we went things that I might have missed or ideas for how to make things better. You gave me that information to take into consideration, and then I would either take them or not, depending on what I saw as best.
Mhm.
But the whole act of moving was an act of dominance and submission.
Yeah, and it was as easy as it could be. Like, there was physical labor, there was emotional stuff involved, like, there were a couple times I cried when I was going through some things.
But there was zero arguing. There
Nope.
was zero fighting over anything, or you know, it all went very smoothly because we both know our role and our place and everything in life. And you know, I don't want to just put words in your mouth here, but I believe you believe that you're going to be heard
Mhm.
if you have concerns or if something is going wrong, that you can
Without a
speak
doubt.
up,
Absolutely.
but then also that you don't have to be responsible for any of it at all. You just do what I tell you to do.
And I love that.
Exactly.
Such a weight gone.
So, you know, you can do this with like in front of your kids, right? It's not like I'm doming you, standing over you with a whip, telling you to pack that box. It's setting the structure so that you can freely operate within a structure that you don't have to figure out.
Right.
And then Snoop Dogg walks on my left hand side if he's with us, but I will always do my best to protect you from traffic. And that is an act of dominance. Anybody else sees that, it looks like a romantic gesture,
Yeah.
but it's also protecting what's mine.
Mhm.
So the little things that you can do that we both know that this is a part of her submission to me and my responsibility for her. Nobody else needs to know that, but we do.
Yeah.
So hopefully that helps a little bit with a couple of ideas. And you can integrate this into parenting. You can integrate this into any part
Mm.
of your life if you're able to start looking at, where do you want to let go of control? Where can I take leadership and ownership? And then if you start looking at why that's challenging when it gets challenging, here's the real, like, this is the real bread and butter here. You can say, I want to give this up. And he can say, I want to take the lead here. And then all the ways that it's hard for him to take the lead, where he struggles with telling, like where I would struggle with telling you what to do because I was afraid of upsetting you, or where you struggled with following because of fear, or you struggled with speaking up because you
Fear.
were afraid of what I might think or say. All of these different little things that will show themselves to you as you work to step into a leadership role, step into a follower role, step into a dominant role and a submissive role outside of the bedroom in day-to-day normal life. If you can really be with and look deeply at underneath why it's hard to do exactly what you want to do and what would feel if you could go there, that's where that's where all the juice is. That's where you start to unwind your really deep patterns and come closer together.
Mhm.
The question here: have you found psychological or theoretical support for the depth and freshness of your connection? Like, you are cool people, thank you. But surely you're not the first people to have found this secret sauce.
Great question.
It's a really, really good question. And to some extent, yes, I'm sure that we're not the only people that have ever figured this out. But we are only us. And really, I concern myself less with what anyone else does or has done in the past, and more with focusing on authenticity and on being myself and trusting my own experience. If other people have gotten here, my God, am I happy for them, because it's worth whatever it takes. It's worth all of the pain. It's worth all of the struggle. It's worth all of the unwinding old patterns and dealing with childhood trauma and all the stuff that causes it to be hard to do something like telling you to get on your knees because I'm afraid of upsetting you when you're not in a good mood. Right? So I'm sure other people have, but I haven't gone looking for it because frankly, I don't care.
Well, a couple other aspects there is when you get to this depth of connection, it is not always super easy to describe and articulate what is actually going on here. This man has a gift for it. And like being willing to share this publicly is not doesn't seem all that common because we haven't come across a lot of people doing it. Like, I don't even look for people doing it because what we share isn't about authenticity. And so what I love about this man is his ability to take a little bit from here, a little bit from here, a little bit from here, and look at all of our lives together, from how we live and fitness and emotional and spiritual and all of the aspects of life. And the way you can connect everything, connect the spiritual experience and connect the human experience. And how do you thrive in that here on earth? Like, your ability to do that is like nobody else I've ever met. Not saying nobody is doing it. I've never met them. And that's what I just love about you. It's a gift. I truly believe you're here to share this in this way. For long that is. So, are other people living it? I sure hope so. I really do, but this is a ongoing journey of connecting to the deeper aspect of the world through relationship, and what relationship truly, I believe, what marriage, the word marriage, even if maybe it's, I don't know where the word marriage came from, but anyway, why we need each other, why men and women need each other, and what is made possible when
Mhm.
there's that depth of commitment, because it has to be there. Like the love and devotion, it has to be there because this stuff is hard.
The best evidence that I have of the rightness of what it is that we do, besides our own experience, has been watching the people that we work with
Mhm.
in courses, in, like, again, in Rapture, in communion, and watching people's lives shift around when they start to integrate some of that we've come to learn to relate to each other. And really some of the counterintuitive things that I teach, because the ego will tell you that everything I talk about is wrong.
Yep.
Like, let your woman express all of her emotions to you, and a man's ego will tell you that that is absolutely a terrible idea, incredibly dangerous. But if you can learn how to be okay in the presence of everything that she's feeling, will she give you more of herself? She will come to a new level of connection to her own self and her own body, and her emotional experience will change to something powerfully spiritual. And that requires the ability for me to hold that. And that, women, if you're hearing me say this, don't go put this expectation on your man right now, because holy shit, this has taken me years to be able to do this. And I could go off on this for an hour because I'm so passionate about it. But the best evidence that I have has been watching people's lives change when they follow my advice, in spite of what their ego is telling them not to do, and then watching it happen. We had a question someone sent in on Instagram that I wanted to remember to bring up here. Someone asked you, do you think that it's possible to become too submissive, assuming you're in a relationship that's healthy and loving where boundaries are being respected?
No. The only time that would be harmful is if you're in self-abandonment, and self-abandonment is not submission.
And what I would add to that is, if you are in a relationship with a dominant man who loves you, cares for you, respects you, treats you well, and would not damage you with your submission, the totality of your submission will open you up to really the most safety that you can ever find. I don't think you can be too submissive with somebody who loves you and cares about you. It really is that two-way street, because the more you've opened to me, the more you have submitted to me, the more you have given yourself to me, the higher calling I feel to take care of you, to protect you, to look after you, to not let anything happen to you, because I love you, first and foremost. And second of all, you've set your guard down because I asked you to. So I damn well better look after you.
Yeah.
So that inspires something in me when you just say, I'm not going to do it for myself anymore.
Yeah. And again, like, it gets to a point where it's really hard to keep articulating the depth of this, but eventually the words come.
Yeah. I love this question. Do you suggest starting, I'm assuming starting in dominance and submission, even if there's resentment, insecurity, etc., within the relationship, solo and together? Well, if you're going to wait for there to be no resentment or insecurity, you're never going to start. So yes, absolutely, if you're both on board, and if you can sit down together and do this together, because the resentment that's present will show you what it is, where it is that you've self-abandoned, where it is that you have not spoken up for yourself. And when you can get to a point where you can sit down, rather than feeling resentful and then using that resentment to try to get something from your partner, and really instead just speak up for your needs and have them received, that's the other side of the coin. But the only way to get there is to bring some presence and honesty and realistic truth to what it is that resentment and insecurity is about, and work through it together, do it together. Let him see you, since this is being asked by a woman, like, ask him to see you. What is it that he sees in you around, like, maybe why you feel insecure? Let him guide you to a better experience while you continue to speak up and be heard. So there's always going to be resentment and insecurity when you start doing this work. The resentment and the insecurity show you what you need to work on. They're the gift. Every time that one of you pisses each other off, or One of you shuts down and goes in or go into an anxious avoidant attachment pattern. These are all trauma responses. They are all ways that we show up to try to get needs met because we're hurt. And it's reminding us of hurts from our past, usually from our childhoods. So every single one of these times that something hurts, it brings up an insecurity, it brings up a fear, it triggers some kind of a response. That shows you where it is that you are not free in yourself. And what is it that you can look inward rather than pointing a finger and saying, you did this and I'm the victim. I'm the one feeling this. What is going on inside of me that's causing me to feel this? When you can do that together in full transparency, presence, honesty with each other about your experiences, boy, like that's intimacy. And that's why conscious relationships and deep intimacy are, to me, they're the perfect path for spiritual growth, because nothing will trigger you more than someone that you love.
It's the way relationships are designed.
Mm-hmm.
Or the human experience, whatever.
Yeah. And I would say we've both really learned through this what it means to actually love each other for real.
Absolutely.
Because to both of us before, what felt like love was really, what I loved in you was really what you did and who you had to be for me. So I loved you for the ways that you would do what I wanted you to do. Now I can really love you for who you are. And my love for you can be completely detached from anything you do, from any action you take or don't take. It does not matter what you do. My love for you is the same always now. I don't feel more love for you when you're doing what I like and less love when you're doing something that I don't like, because I love you for who you are, not for what you do or don't do.
That is a heart-opening experience, that's for sure.
We had in the chat Y66666666, and then oops, I had a cat across the keyboard. That made me laugh.
That was a long yes.
that made me laugh earlier when I saw it, so I had to at least say it out loud. Follow up to one of the last questions here. Thank you. I struggle even after therapy, etc. Damn abusive relationship and major insecurity within myself. You guys have been helpful for sure. Thank you. And since you brought up therapy, I will put my plug in here for EMDR therapy, eye movement desensitization and reprocessing. EMDR therapy. This is something that has changed both of our lives, because this is a therapy that is not just talking about your problems. It's actually going back into the things that were hurtful, traumatic, painful from your childhood, from earlier in your life, and it heals the wounds. It doesn't just help you feel better about something that happened. It physiologically changes your brain and the way that you relate to the things that happened in your past, because all of us have things that happened in the past that do not trigger us. Right? Mm-hmm. Most of the things that have ever happened in my life, that they're just memories. They're things that happened. And then there are a few things that happened earlier on in my life that got stuck because I didn't have a voice, because I was powerless. You had these things where like, you didn't have anywhere to go with the things you were feeling, and then they get stuck. And our bodies hold on to them and react in a physiological way as though that thing is still happening now. And talking about it can help you feel better. You can learn skills to calm yourself, to bring yourself to safety, which is all valuable and helpful and important, but it doesn't actually fix the problem. It's like a Band-Aid. EMDR is like a surgery that fixes the problem and helps your brain file those traumatic memories away into the long-term storage with all the other things that just happened. It's so damn powerful, and it has changed both of our lives for sure. You wouldn't be seeing the people that you're seeing here today if it wasn't for that.
Agreed.
If you have any more questions, keep them coming in. We've got a little more time yet here. We have one more. How do you balance the enmeshment of DS while avoiding codependence? Ooh, wow, that is a fantastic question. That is such a good question. Thank you for that one. Well, that's the whole game, I think, is letting this be. I'll say it this way. I think I've said this before on our podcast. We have to differentiate between individuality and independence. This is where the difference in this comes in, because for us to be in the relationship that we are in, we have to be able to be fully individual. Like, I need you to be completely whole and in self-ownership of who you are. Be able, like, to completely stand on your own as a fully open example of the feminine. Physically receptive, emotionally expressive, and in complete ownership and trust in who you are at a soul level. And I need to be that as a man. Individuality then allows us to interact if we understand the concepts of polarity in relationships. If you haven't read it yet, I believe it is the last 2 episodes before this one on our podcast, we talked about polarity. Both those episodes are great. In the show notes to those episodes, there is an ebook that we gave away for free as a part of those that you can pick up. And if you can be in complete individuality without claiming or staking claim to independence, so to be fully whole as a person and then to be able to be in full connection with each other. This is yin and yang. This is Shiva and Shakti. This is masculine, feminine energy. It's all of the different ways that people have put this. But we can depend on each other without being codependent when we are fully in a state of self-ownership, when we're fully in a state of authenticity. And that's why we talk about authenticity work. And it's why we talk about all of this embodiment and inner strength work and everything else that we talk about, because you have to unwind your codependent patterns without pushing somebody away and going into this state of, well, I don't need you because now I'm independent. So being fully individual and also being able to be in full presence with each other.
So all of what you just shared, yes, but we've arrived at that through relationship together. So that's why I believe we need each other. We need to be in relationship. That's how you evolve beyond the codependent patterns. It's like they come from our own wounding. So it's part of what creates the chemistry in the new relationship energy. It's because this wound is in you and this wound is in her, and like you're drawn together, and guess what? It's your gift that you get to unravel together. So when you bring conscious awareness to your relationships, don't be afraid of that pattern showing itself again, because if it hasn't been quote unquote healed, it's going to be there. That's okay. It's the way it's designed. So don't resist it. Walk into it with awareness, and you will see what you need to see. And then you continue to evolve together.
Mm-hmm.
This is meant to be together. Union is together.
Yeah. And you'll find almost no relationships that are free of codependency from the start.
Right.
Codependency, like you said, that's what draws you together in the first place. So it really is, why do you fall into those codependent patterns? If you can notice where you're in them where you have a feeling of like, I'm not okay unless she's okay. And so I'm going to do whatever I need to do to make sure that I please her because I can't handle being upset. Oh, well, why am I doing that? Well, newsflash, guys, it probably has to do with mom.
What stories you made about mom?
Yep. And belief systems. So this is why you like read books like The Four Agreements, read books like Gabor Mate's book, The Myth of Normal, and really become a student of trauma work, become a student of authenticity work, because the real magic is being able to see yourself and why you go into those codependent patterns, and then deploy whatever you need to heal those wounds that caused you to build those beliefs that cause you to act this way now, so that you can show up in more presence and more authenticity with the person you love.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, and by the way, when you start doing that, guess what? You're going to trigger her, because now it's going to feel to her ego like you're pulling back from her, when really you're just, you're overcoming the enmeshment, or you're letting go of that enmeshment.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that'll trigger someone who's relied on that enmeshment to get a feeling of love or garner some sort of self-worth from the way that you show up. So as you change, then she gets triggered. Well, now there's something for her to work on, and seeing herself in that trigger, and for you just to hold her and support her in that and give her the space to do that. Because as she changes and overcomes that, guess what? Whatever changes in her, probably going to trigger something in you. And then you just like, you go back and forth. And we've said this so many times. It's been like, I go and then you go, and then I go and then you go.
I'm just trying to read a cup if there's anything more here.
So yes, I did read this question, and I want to go here because it's not like, there's so much more to it than just the meat of the question. But what if I've come into finding myself more and acknowledging that I'm bisexual, but since I came out as a married woman, it was done within marriage. Now I'm afraid that is something he may want to implement in the dom sub life. But what if I just don't want that? I don't know how to feel and navigate that. So beautiful question here because of one word: afraid. I'm afraid that is something he may want to implement. Do you trust yourself enough to speak up for yourself? To say, I don't want to implement any part of my bisexuality into our dominant submissive dynamic. That's a limit for me, and that is something that can't happen. The fear is not of what he's going to do. The fear that you have is that you're not going to speak up for yourself. The fear that you have is really not him to you, but it's you to you. Building the trust in yourself to express yourself, to speak up, to say what you want, to set limits and set boundaries and hold them well, is how you, whether it's about this or anything else, it doesn't matter. Bear with us 1 second here, just in case you happen to miss us.
What the heck? Oh, going a little over on her.
YouTube Live wanted to verify that somebody hadn't hacked us. I don't know why. So yeah, being able to speak up for yourself, being able to speak up and share what it is that you're okay with and not okay with will alleviate all those problems. But if you're afraid to speak up, again, look at yourself. Why is it that you are afraid? If you can see why you might be afraid of speaking up and sharing what is a limit and a boundary and something you're just not okay with, you'll find something in yourself about where that fear of expressing yourself comes from. Andrew, does Dawn support you when you get triggered, or do you go to Dawn when you get triggered, or do you work on that yourself? There's a lot to that question. So do I completely cut her out from my experience? I try not to. But do I go to her for help with holding me when I'm in pain over something that triggers me? No. Now, if I did, See this, and this is why this is such a deep question, because I know guys will hear me and think, "Oh, I can't go to her with any of how I feel ever. Like, what if my dad dies? What if my dog dies?"
Or even
You've never seen me cry harder than when my dog died.
right, or even just, um, you're human, right? So
Hmm.
this is a journey of arriving at this point. Guess what? You're probably gonna fuck it up a little bit,
Yeah,
but it's through the fuck ups that you're gonna find your strength.
yeah, yeah. So in my experience, no, I try not to go to her when I'm in a triggered state, and I try not to process what's going on about it with her. Now, if I can get myself grounded into a state of clarity and say, "Well, here's what's happening," because she'll know, right? As the moment that I lose it, especially now, because thankfully it happens so infrequently. And this is something like another piece of why I talk about the way that we approach this is so fucking worth it, because you can get to a point, guys, where you literally feel okay all the time. Where you're not in fear, you aren't triggered, you aren't upset, you aren't angry, you aren't sad, you aren't depressed. You're just okay all the time. And then the very rare occasion when something comes up, frankly, for me, I get excited because, oh shit, there's something there that I didn't know was there. Now I can look at what's going on with this.
So you can get to that point.
Yeah, that is possible. And then when that happens for me, I what I go to her with tends to be more resolution when I have it, because you'll know that I'm in it. There's no way that your partner is going to not know, especially when it becomes an infrequent thing. Like
Well,
you feel that.
yeah, but early on, if you're in a trigger, I'm in a trigger if it's a conversation. So you gotta keep working through those. But there's times where I'll just feel like I'll just feel like we're off, and I might ask you something, and you might tell me, "You know what? I am feeling something, and I'm working through something, and when I have some clarity to it, I will share with you what needs to be shared."
Mhm.
And I accept that, and I drop it. I don't, "Please tell
What's
me what's
what's wrong?
going
What's
on
wrong?
with
What's wrong? What's
you."
wrong? What's
Like,
wrong?
that's not helpful at all. So,
So, yes, if something tragic happens, I'm going to go to you for a hug. You're my
yeah,
wife.
absolutely, I want that. And, let me say this again too. It's not that you can't ever. It's just you have to understand it might not be in the proper polarity,
Mhm.
right? It's not about right or wrong. You have to go through those times of like, "Oh, wait, I shared a lot." And she might be like, "Yeah, I can't handle anymore." I got to that once in a while where I'm like, "Can we be done talking now?"
Yeah. And there, when it comes to polarity, there is an optimal way to relate to each other on a moment to moment basis. You are not going to get that perfect, and it's not designed to get it perfect. But what it is designed to do, again, back to this concept of how good can this get?
Mhm.
Okay, when you understand how this works, when it works well, you can see not only when it's not working well, but you can see why very quickly and very easily. And then there's something next time you can try to do better as a means to slow, gradual, consistent self-improvement, right? If I
Yeah.
just had something happen in a meeting and it upset me and kind of I just got annoyed and it was stupid and somebody was being dumb and I'm complaining to you and like acting like a little bit of a victim, and then guess what? I'm going to notice you, because you're going that will put the polarity in our relationship into the wrong direction, into the inverse. And then we're going to feel all of the ramifications of that for a little while. That's
Mhm.
not wrong. It's not bad. I didn't wreck anything. You can't screw this up. It's just that I can learn a lesson then from that when I see, oh wow, she then like
Shut down.
shut down or pulled back from me or started getting a little bit maybe a little bit snippy or a little bit sassy with me. because of how it throws you off when I'm thrown off, when something outside of me throws me off, when I get triggered or reactive or defensive somehow, it throws you off, and I can see in you sometimes what I can't see in myself. So if I see you getting all like emotionally activated, a lot of times I don't point the finger at you. I go, hmm, what happened? Where was there a way somehow where I was not showing up as solid as I could be? Because that, to me, I recognize now as a reaction you have to feeling unsafe in some way. Because if I'm not solid, you don't feel safe.
Mhm.
So thank you everyone for being a part of this live. This has been a really good time. We always love these. And again, if you're listening to this, if you want more of what it is that we are doing here, please check out Rapture, our course. It starts on January 16th this year. It's 5 months of really deep instruction and deep Q&A with us, where we can help you through integrating all of this into your life. And this is a special thing we do every year. This is going to be the best one yet. We've expanded and added so much to it this year. It's going to be a lot of fun, and I really do hope that we see some of you in there. So you can check that out in the show notes or on our website, infinitedevotion.com/rapture.
Thank you all for being here.
Thank you, everyone, so much. We love you all. We appreciate you, and Happy New Year. Wish every one of you the best 2025.
Absolutely.
Bye, everyone.